Yeah, quite a showing tonight in Augusta, in Athens. Wrong A. In Georgia, terrible first half. Good comeback. Not enough. Rob Brown's with me to discuss this. We're also going to have Branch Beard at some point. Also, our buddy Carlton Reese. So stand by and tell your friends and neighbors. Finally, we're late because we want to watch the game. The Buddy Martin Show is on the air with my co-host, Rob Brown. Stand by.
Yes, it's time again for Buddy Martin. Call him up and tell him what you're thinking. But be kind because he's doing the best he can.
Better, stronger, faster.
Mama says that alligators are ornery because they got all them teeth but no toothbrush.
Hey, what if the voice calls while you're gone?
Take a message.
Bye.
You ready, champ?
I'm ready for this my whole life.
I'm incapable of small talk. But that's why you love me, right?
Kind of intimidating to be in the presence of so many great athletes.
Hey, welcome, folks, to the show. And Rob, while you're doing that, take that old email and email that link to friends and send it to them because we don't. The link I have for him is wrong. So email him the copy of that link I gave you that you gave me. All right, not that one, not the one I sent you, but the one because he can't get on. It's asking him for a password for some reason. That's new.
Yeah, exactly.
All right. So go ahead and do that. And this will kind of unwind here a minute. Let me call fans. Call fans, Beard.
Hello.
Hey, France, we're having problems getting you the password, the link. So we got you on there live for a minute. What a basketball game. Unbelievable. The worst basketball I've seen him play all year long. It was a dreadful first half. If it wasn't for Will Richard, they probably would have just folded up the tents at halftime. Give us your thoughts on that. Tough game to lose. They got nobody to blame but themselves, friends.
Well, it starts at the foul line, buddy. You know, they make a couple free throws. It's over, period. And they picked a heck of a night to go south at the foul line. They've been making free throws all year long, and not tonight. I'm just absolutely shocked that they were unable to make free throws. You got people, Walter Clayton going 5 for 7 at the foul line. On and on and on like that. I mean, this was just not something. Not something characteristic of the Gators, but here I'm on now.
Okay, I'll hang up the phone. Okay, yeah. All right, France is back on, and we'll bring up our guys here. Sorry, folks, a lot of confusion tonight, technical issues, and of course a crazy game. So stand by while we get our guys on here, and we'll see if we can make something happen. Plus, we're getting a sort of problems with our site also. Let's see. All right, here we go. Here's Carlton Reese. Carlton, stand by. Here's Franz. All right, Franz, take it away.
Well, you look at the first half. In that first half, the Gators couldn't buy a shot, turned it over. I mean, totally did. But it all started at the defensive end, buddy. When you don't play defense, it does carry over to your offensive game. And, this happened at Tennessee. It was more about the defense than it was about the offense in that first half. They're playing bad defense. Bad defense carries over. Now you're making bad. Now you're taking bad shots and thinking about what you're doing wrong defensively. And you can't let that happen. You got to be. If there's one thing that really happened here, other than missing a bunch of free throws, the Gators let what's going on at one end of the court influence what's going on down at the other. You know, you hear that old saying, you know, you got to compartmentalize it. You got to make it one play at a game at a time. When you lose sight of that, games get away from you. And that's
France, they did uncharacteristic thing. They can't make free throws. I mean, Walter Clayton Jr. probably played his worst basketball game of his career at Florida. Will Richard
say that.
Well, I mean, I just said it, but nonetheless, here's the thing: is that Will Richard was scoreless this last game.
Yeah.
What do you want to do with 34? What do you 30? I didn't even
wound
know.
up with 30 tonight. I will say this in defense of Walter. Walter Clayton took a beating tonight. And the fact that he only got shot 7 free throws, he should have shot 17 or 20 free throws. There was a play there just before Georgia gets the 3 that wins it. Walter just got mugged. Absolutely got mugged. Give Mike White credit. He had Pat Adams in his corner, and that Zebra crew, they let some stuff go. Walter, I've not seen Walter take a beating like that.
Well, I thought he was playing 40 before he started getting beat up.
I thought he started getting beat up from the opening whistle.
Let's get a word from Rob, because he's here too. Rob, you saw the game. Your thoughts about that? You have less at stake here, but.
Well, I mean, here's the thing: Georgia, when they played Auburn Saturday, you could not shake them. They've got some talent, and you know Newell is a guy we talked about this morning. Asa Newell for Georgia, the freshman. You can't win though the conference championship, or you ain't gonna win it all with a bunch of one and dones. He's a one and done. But Florida, to their credit, look what it took to beat them. I mean, that last minute and 48 seconds took 25 minutes to play. So, you know, you're not going to win every game. Florida's still got to be one of the top 5.
Yeah, but this was an embarrassing performance to me tonight. I wrote it was the most embarrassing performance I've seen. And I get it. Teams have bad games. But friends, I mean, you knew right out the bat, everything Georgia threw up went in. Everything. I mean,
sometimes teams do that, buddy.
78% of threes in the first half. 78. Yeah. This is Georgia.
That's unheard of.
Incredible.
Teams go into shooters' comas. You hear me say that expression. I stole that from Dan Jenkins, who talked about guys that go in what he calls open coma at the U.S. Open, when all of a sudden they cannot. Guys who couldn't hit a putt suddenly can't miss one. And you have things like that. Now, Florida did not defend well. They did not.
They sort of look half-assed at times, like they just didn't have the gusto. They did, they just didn't. I mean, they didn't look like they were. I know they were trying to play hard, but they looked lethargic, didn't they, Rob? They just looked lethargic.
Yeah, but you're playing on the road. Life on the road in the SEC is tough. But yeah, Florida didn't have a great game tonight, but Georgia didn't let them have a great game. I mean, and that's going to happen.
Buddy.
And the officiating in the SEC, I mean, I'm with friends. When you're one of the top teams late like this, it's almost like there's activist officials in the league that are trying to get these teams like a Georgia, an Arkansas, or even Oklahoma into the tournament, and they will almost throw you overboard as shark bait to make.
I've heard of make-up calls, but never make up games.
Hey, buddy, yeah, I got to tell you this. Look what happened when Auburn went to Georgia. Auburn needed a miracle to win by 3 at Georgia. Auburn. Everybody says Auburn's unbeatable. Well, Florida beat Florida at Auburn. But Auburn went to Georgia and damn near got its butt handed to them on a platter. Now you want to talk about having a couple of very, very nice calls that went their way. It took them. Yeah. But it took an outright miracle for Auburn to win. Now, I'm not saying that Florida played a great game. Florida blew it at the foul line, period. End of story. Florida makes free throws. It's over. They didn't. They were 18 for 29 at the foul line. It's over if they make the free throws. And they didn't do that. They did not do that. Look at what Georgia got out rebounded. At one point in time, Georgia was up 16-7 on the boards. And that's largely because everything was coming out wide. It wasn't because Florida was getting dominated in the paint. It's because a lot of free throws were, a lot of shots were wide, taking long shots. Long shots means long rebounds. And that's where Georgia was getting it. But
That's right.
To Florida's credit, after trailing 39-13, Florida outscores them 70-49. Holy cow. I mean, that's just that's just practically unheard of. We can say that Florida blew a game. Yes, they did. But how many teams in the SEC or anywhere in the country can trail by 26 points and still come back and it's white knuckles at the end? It's only because Georgia hits a bunch of free throws when they had to get
Florida
fouled.
did not. My goodness, they couldn't hit a foul shot in the second half.
They were 18 for 29. You want to know where the game was lost? That's where it was lost right there.
I agree with you. Yeah, and so lackadaisical.
But you look at Florida's second half stats. I mean, they did everything right except free throws. 12 for 19 from the foul line in the second half. They make some free throws, the ball game's over.
All right, Howard Lovering asked, "How does this game hurt us?
Does it?
How bad
Does it? Florida will still be a top 4 seed at the SEC tournament. Florida will still be a top 4 seed in the NCAA tournament. It's not going to hurt.
But
now,
it was Georgia. It was Georgia, which always hurts.
Well, I despise Georgia, and everybody knows that. But stuff happens. Stuff does happen, and this is the Southeastern Conference, where, quite frankly, you got 2 bad teams, and you got 14 really good ones. Maybe 2 or 3 of them that are potentially great teams. But, I'm not down on the Gators because of this game at all.
No, I'm just saying what it was.
And I'm not going to say that the Gators had their worst game of the year, because they have had a couple of wins that were far worse than this loss.
Yeah, you can't get behind like that. By the way, I think Juwan Chisholm, whoever you are, absolutely nailed it. It didn't matter about the defense at the beginning of the game because Georgia was making everything. I mean, they were a bad shooting foot team that looked like, lights out. They could not miss a shot. Everything they threw the ball up there and it went in. It was just, that's just the way it goes in the game of basketball, right, guys?
It's called shooter's coma. They went 7 for 9 on 3-point shots in the first half. In the second half, Georgia's 3 for 9, but they made one. Blue Kane made the one that counted. And Lord have mercy, I'll say this: give Mike White credit for out of that timeout. He sets up a stack play with a double screen, and picks it. He picked out the guy he wanted to shoot, and while Florida goes after, the guy that Florida went after was Demery. Good choice. It's what you got to do. Kane, but they designed the play for Kane. Kane comes off a double stack screen, top of the key, and he gets a shot, and he's got forever to make it, and he did. So give Mike White credit for designing a fantastic play.
And by the way, Mike White had lost. Mike White had lost 4 in a row, and Florida would have won 6 in a row. He just got his team in the tournament.
Probably so. Because he's got a couple games that he can win now. He's got Texas and South Carolina still on his schedule. So tonight was 17 wins against Texas and South Carolina. He's going to be 19 wins, and he's going to get into the tournament. Big win for them. But, look, the Gators, people will forget that they lost to Georgia if they take care of business in these next 3 games. They've got the Aggies at Alabama and then Ole Miss. You win those 3 ball games, you finish the season 14-4 in the SEC. which means you're going to probably be the number 2 seed in the tournament, in the SEC tournament, which means you don't play till Friday. Holy cow, what a concept that is. You know, some teams are going to be playing on Wednesday night, and the Gators won't have to play until Friday. So everything's still in front of them. The game was lost at the foul line, period. The game was lost in the first half defense, period. Not a great ball game for the Gators, but what a second half. What an incredible second half. Look at you look at this, and Florida outscores Georgia 48-37 in the second half. From the time it was 39-13, Florida outscores them 70 to, my gosh, look at there, 70-50. Florida took a lot of points off there. So here's what we learned. We learned that Todd Golden can flat out coach again, because he did a tremendous job to get the Gators back into this game. We learned that Will Richard he needs to have more games like this when he suddenly can really take over a ball game, because he can. Walter's been beaten up. I mean, at LSU, Walter got clocked. I'm telling you, I don't know of a single player in the league, with the exception maybe of Janai Broom, because Janai Broom gets beaten up every ball game, and it's like the SEC Zebras seem to think that, okay, maybe it's because he's so good that he has to get the physical abuse he has. The second guy that gets it all the time is Walter Clayton Jr. Absolutely gets hammered, and very, very few calls. He had an attempted layup when he got absolutely smacked, and I'm still finding it hard to believe that Jeb Hartness, was right there, 2 feet away, couldn't make that call. Jeb Hartness should not be allowed to call a pickup game at the YMCA.
So we're mad at the refs. They didn't do a good job tonight. Let's do this. It was not a good night for Florida. They didn't play well.
The refs didn't cause Florida the game, but they didn't.
No, they didn't. But they didn't help. I get it. But I mean, you can't. That happens every game to everybody. So you just got to say it's like balls and strikes. You know, sometimes you get them, sometimes you don't. That's the way it is when it's efficient. But Florida's lost the game because they couldn't make the foul shots, and they waited. I mean, Will Richard, I think he had more than 30, didn't he? I mean,
he had 30 on the nose.
Okay.
Yeah, 11 for 17 from.
And he had 17 the first half.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
but look at what Walter did. Look at what Walter did in the last 4 minutes of the ball game.
Yeah.
When you want to talk about
how he's a money player. I agree.
How guys come up when they have to.
Yeah, France, can you hang for a minute? You have to go.
I can hang with you.
Okay, well, I'm going to get Carlson too on sitting there waiting. I'm going to tell the folks about Meldon Law while I'm doing that, because as you know, if they don't sponsor us, we're not on the air. And we appreciate so much what Meldon Law does. You all know about Meldon Law by now. They are the only official law firm of the University of Florida, the injury law firm. And they, of course, headed up by Jeffrey, of course, Carrie as well. And they want you to know if you have a law question or you just want to talk Gators, come by the offices and see them. There are 4 locations: Ocala, Gainesville, Lake City, and Williston. And the good chance you'll get to see a melded, which is unusual. Usually call an 800 number. They give you some guy from Walla Walla. So Jeffrey is doing a great job in Cary. Soon to have another family member around and joining the staff. I'll see him in a couple of weeks. So Meldon Law, they won't back down. And Carlson, the Gators didn't back down, but didn't have enough juice at the end, did they?
Well, you're down 26 points, buddy. The fact that you came back and even took a lead at one point is kind of amazing, but it was just a bad night for Florida. I wrote about it earlier in the week that's what's compelling about college basketball. A team that's worse than you shoots well, plays great. You don't, you lose the game. It can happen to anybody.
Let me ask you all this question in a weird sort of way. Could this be a wake-up call they needed, friends, at this point in time, going to the tournament? riding along pretty lofty with a 6-game winning streak. Number 3, talk about wanting to be a number 1 seed. Maybe you got their comeuppance at just the right time. What do you think?
Well, in both these road games, they had 6 minutes and 49 seconds worth of horrendous basketball at the end of the first half against LSU. How they played against LSU was worse than they played against Georgia. I mean, it really was. But you look at what happened. You take a game there at LSU that if LSU could have sustained what they did the last 6:49, LSU could have beaten them. So they've had 2 straight ball games when they've had stretches of basketball that they were really, really bad in. And that's just the only when they went down 39-13, as I said, that was more, I think, because of their shortcomings on the defensive end, how they carried over on the offensive end. And against LSU, they just, I don't know where they were, but they had a 15-point lead, and they should have never lost a 15-point lead. But playing that and having stretches like that, you're right in this respect that Todd Golden's needs to get them in there and bring in us an exorcist or somebody to get the snakes out of their head about this, because you cannot let a few bad plays get to your head and take you out of a ball game. And almost happened at LSU, did happen in this game. You just can't let that happen.
All right. Rob, you're not saying much. I know you watch the game, and I know you, of course, Rob does the SEC sidelines every morning with Brendan Martin, and sometimes Franz is on there. We're going to get Carlton on there at some point in time. By the way, Carlton Reese are the finest writers and editors in the business.
Oh, God.
I'm just saying like it is. I mean, you ever hear me say this about anybody else? No, you do, your friends. And he is a terrific writer. He has a magazine he started called The Ocala, which is going to be terrific. What I've seen of it. I'm going to help him all I can because the topic is important to me. And
I need you, buddy.
I need you, and you've done a great. He writes for us. He writes for Gator Bait. By the way, Mike Griffith, you guys know him, right?
Yes, indeed.
Dog Nation, right. He was on today on Feinbaum with Spurrier and Doring, yesterday, plugging the event, which is great. The when Spurrier's Grand Grill, the first coach of the year, whatever. So he was kissing up to Spurrier and whatever, and I texted Feinbaum while he was on the air and said, maybe he could write for Gator Bait. And Feinbaum wrote back and said, he ain't good enough. So anyway, Carlton's a fine writer and a good friend, and Rob has an old soul. Rob loves writers. Now he tried to write a column and did it for a couple of weeks, but that's okay, Rob. I understand. You did good when you did it. You'll be back. I get it. Yeah. I get it. I mean, look, it's not easy, is it? It's not easy to get those words down. I mean, it's hard. And Franz is going to have to grind out. Franz is an amazing word machine. He just keeps pumping it out there. He's like nonstop. And here's the thing about Franz. He knows this subject really. First of all, he knows everything about Florida. Secondly, he knows basketball as good as anybody I know who writes it. And he also is a wonderful writer. That's a good combination to have, Franz. That's the last nice thing I'm going to say about you. That's it for the year, friends. And I'm back to Rob. Rob, you saw it. How would you write it?
Well, I mean, it sucks losing. And you talk about a comeuppance or a wake-up call. I don't think you ever want to advocate for losing as a coach. But, right now, I'm looking at these scores. Alabama's beating Mississippi State 42-19. Tennessee up 26-23, struggling on the road at LSU. And I've got Missouri is just taking South Carolina out 44-29. This league is so good that the worst team, South Carolina, has taken Florida to 1 point, Auburn to 3 points, Vandy on the road 3. They beat Texas the other night, and they're 1-13. I think Florida, I don't think there's a dominant team. I mean, the further you get away from Florida beating Auburn and Auburn, just like I think Auburn beat Alabama twice last week when Alabama lost to Auburn in Auburn, had to go on the road to play Missouri. I think that Auburn has not been the same team since they beat Alabama in Tuscaloosa. Struggled to beat Arkansas last week. Struggled to beat Georgia Saturday. They are, I think they're a really good team, but I just think the SEC has got, it's a grind. These are 18 to 25-year-old kids. That's what I say now because a lot of them are in here for 6 or 7 years. But Auburn and Florida, if they played tomorrow, because of the size, the mismatch, it's not a good matchup. I'd still take them to beat Auburn. I think Auburn will struggle tomorrow with Ole Miss. I think Auburn gets curb stomped Saturday in Lexington. The last time Auburn beat Kentucky in Lexington, John Kaler from Morris, Tennessee, with one of the best mullets I've ever seen, hit a shot at the buzzer to win 51-50. Auburn is not going to beat Kentucky because the SEC office will not allow it. Auburn will be basically a stage prop up there. It's the way this stuff goes. Florida closes out strong. I think they're with 5 big guys, as Fran says, 25 big fouls. They're tough, but get over it. I mean, it's Georgia. If you shoot 78% in the first half 3-pointers, you'll probably beat anybody, one of the top 2 teams in the country, and they just did. It ain't going to happen again. And Todd Golden will not let that happen again.
Well, I don't think this is a disaster. Don't get me wrong.
No, it's not.
The fact is they just played bad, and they've been on a roll. But here's what, Carlton, you can speak to this kid, but just got to wrote a column saying, I don't care. Let somebody else have number 1, Auburn. But the fact is, what really ticked me off, no matter if I'm a Gator fan or not, is that they won 6 in a row and they dropped 1 place in the AP poll. Fans, do they not watch these games or what? I don't understand.
Sure. But here's the thing is, it kind of reminds me of the old Tarkanian statement when he said the NCAA is so mad at Kentucky that they put Cleveland State on probation for 2 more years. And it's kind of like this. Duke could go on a 3-game losing streak and they'll go from number 8 in the country to number 4. Duke at home. I watched Duke and Auburn. Now I'll just use this as an example. I watched Duke and Auburn. Short of somebody chainsawing John I. Broom's leg off, he wasn't going to get a foul call.
No.
Meanwhile, Cooper Flagg could scratch his balls, and they called the other team, and they called somebody on Auburn for fouling him, thinking that he must have had an itch. Somebody must have fouled it. Duke gets more good calls at Cameron than any team in the country. It's kind of like that with Kentucky up at Rupp. Florida lost to Kentucky up at Rupp, 106-100. And Florida couldn't get a call. And nobody gets a call at Rupp. And I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that you get officials up there and you don't have a lot of guys like Don Rutledge who didn't give a damn. You get guys. We used to have a guy in the league named Mike Nance. And Mike Nance, you loved him on the road. You hated him at home because on the road, he wanted to prove to everybody that he was. If you got him on the road, you're getting a break because he's going to try to prove he's not a homer. Yeah. But you get him at home, and he's going to do the same thing to you. Yeah. And it's weird how the games get called. It's weird the reverence everybody has for Duke. My gosh, I used to cover Duke when Duke couldn't win a ball game. I mean, I was there in Chapel Hill when Duke was ahead by 8 with 18 seconds.
Early 70s.
1933.
No, when I was a little kid, I saw Duke in the national championship.
I'm there in Chapel Hill, and if they'd had a 3-point shot, North Carolina doesn't have to win it in overtime. But they came from 8 down with 18 seconds to go.
He's right about that.
And Dean Smith with 4 seconds to go, and Carolina is still down. And Dean Smith's in the huddle, and they call a huddle. He says, "Gosh, guys, isn't this fun?" Bobby Jones looks at him like, "Have you lost your ever-loving mind? We're killing it out. We're dying out here." And sure enough, Bobby Jones steals the ball, gets it to Walter Davis. He banks it from 40 feet. If there'd been a 3-point shot, it would have been the greatest miracle comeback of all time. Florida damn near had one tonight. What, can you imagine coming from 26 down to win that game?
It's terrible to come that far and not win the game.
Can you imagine what they would have done to Mike White up in Athens had Florida won this game?
Speaking of coaches, Art asked a good question. What happened to Aberdeen, Denzel? He didn't play, and they needed somebody. They didn't guard the 3-point shot with the crap all night long. Why didn't Aberdeen play more?
You'd have to ask Mike that question.
In your opinion,
it
wasn't a mistake that he didn't.
I don't know that it was necessarily a mistake. I think that I don't think Mike liked the energy that Denzel was playing with in the first half, and he, particularly on the defensive end, I thought he was very, very, very slow to react on the defensive end in the first half.
I thought Georgia did a good job with their defense, Carlton, pushing Florida out and staying body on body, didn't you?
Yeah, well, I mean, Florida, when you try to hand the ball off, at between the circles and they're all over you, it's just a dumb play. It really is, and we saw too much of that. But as far as on the other side, y'all are talking about, well, Georgia was lights out 78%. Well, if you ever watch these shooters in a shoot around when no one's guarding them, they shoot about 75% from 3-point range.
Do that.
That's what they were dealing with in this game. They were not being guarded. You expect to make those shots. Every time a guy was wide, it says Blue Cane at the end, that 3-pointer that gave him he threw a high elbow moving screen that wasn't called. I'm not a conspiracy theorist, but he came back and then nobody guards him, and you knew he was going to make the shot. Those shooters make shots when they're in that position.
He couldn't make a shot last year when he had the ponytail. They cut the ponytail off, and the kid can shoot. Go figure.
Reverse Samson. Yeah.
I mean, they were shooting 3-pointers like it was a shoot around
they
three
were.
games.
I mean, they were just completely out of their minds. They were throwing the ball up there, Carlton was going in. Unbelievable.
When nobody's guarding you, it's not that difficult.
Well, they're a bad shooting team, though. They were bad. They don't shoot threes. They shoot terrible.
Well, they're usually guarded, though, buddy.
I hear what you're saying, but I know teams that are not guarded that don't make those, and sometimes
it happens.
If you take the last 649 of the LSU game when LSU hit 5 in a row, and then the first, I would say the first 16 minutes of the second half when Georgia is 7 for 8, and Florida was only giving up 28% from the 3-point line coming into this ball game. And this was really uncharacteristic. And again, I think Florida's bad offense in the first half had more to do with how badly they were defending, and I'm of the belief that bad defense carries over more to offense than bad offense carries over to defense, because I've just watched too many teams in the past that could go through bad offensive spells, but they stayed in ball games because they just were tigers on defense and they never let it go. But I've seen too many times the other way around, that when you play bad on the defensive end, it just carries over. That was also a Tarkanian theory, and I never believed it until all of a sudden I watched it enough, and I've come to conclude that he was right.
Well, your best offense is in transition. When you're playing bad defense and teams are scoring on you, they go back and play defense. It's a lot easier to play defense. When you play good defense, you get transition buckets and a defense on its heels. That's when Florida's at its best. When almost everybody's at their best, they should be. But when the team's scoring on you every possession, you're inbounding, walking it up the floor, and playing half court. It's much more difficult.
Alabama tries every 10 seconds on change of possession to score. They don't waste time. They gave up 110 and scored 98 and lost at Missouri last week. I mean, they're really good, but I'm going to ask Coach John Brady when he's on in the morning. Last week, our intern put his top 5 SEC players out. He had Mark Sears in there. And Coach Brady said, I mean, he's good, but I'd like to see him do more with the ball. I think your players of the year in the SEC are either Broome or Walter Clayton Jr. I think Walter Clayton Jr. with that headband, he just makes a lot of things happen. He's a leader. He's an alpha. I think Florida's already over this loss. And I bet you, I mean, their next game, just looking on the schedule, I mean, they've got
the Aggies home. They got the Aggies home at Alabama and home against Ole Miss.
Yeah, A&M's in trouble.
I believe that too. But it's going to be a rock fight.
You know it will.
Speaking of rock fights, Rock Chalk Jayhawk, the number 1 team picked to win the championship in the AP poll was not in the top 25 today. What in the world happened in Kansas? My goodness, they've fallen apart.
It's called no point guard. You got to, although last night they beat Colorado on the road last night.
But they're still to not be in the poll after being number 1, that's out of sight. They just dropped off the face of the earth.
It is, buddy. And it just goes to show you, if you don't have a competent point guard, what happens to you? The teams that win have really, really good point guards. We can talk about the size advantages all we want to, but for the most part, it's still a guard-oriented game. Ever since we got the 3-point shot, it became a perimeter game. It's taken away from, you're never going to see a Wilt Chamberlain or a Frank Selvey score 100 points because they could dominate a game on the inside, because you got the 3-point shot, which makes people space. And it's just changed the entire dynamic of the game. But it's a guard-oriented game. And you tell me a team that has won a national championship that didn't have a really, really exceptional point guard. You go back to those Florida teams. Florida wins 2 national championships back-to-back. Okay? Who's the one player that never missed a game because of an injury? Who's the one player that never fouled out?
Taurean
Green. Mm-hmm. I mean, for all the big, Lee Hump, the great 3-point shooter, Corey Brewer, the great transition guy, Horford and Noah dominating on the inside, and Noah with the personality and everything. Taurean just sat back there and got the job done. And you can't win a national championship without an outstanding point guard. The best point guard I've seen in a championship game in the last 15 years, Kemba Walker at UConn. Kemba Walker at 6 feet tall totally dominated the game. Inside, outside, you name it, he was it. But that's where the game's gone because of that 3-point shot. It's just changed the dynamic completely.
Let me say this word about Titan MRI. Titan MRI, it's now Titan MRI and Imaging. They're located in 4 places now to be able to serve you. They acquired High Field MRI with Joe Coloria, and Joe Coloria now has started High Field, and he's back with them now after all these years. So he's back. Titan MRI and Imaging, and I hear friends typing. Stand by just 1 second, Carl. And I want to finish the spot. 3 locations to serve you: Gainesville with its Park Avenue location, and now at the Millennium Center, and 1 in Lake City, serving all of Columbia County and Valdosta, Georgia, and soon to come to Ocala. Titan MRI and Imaging, check them out. They can make you more comfortable to get your MRI or CT scan. All right, so guys, we only got a couple minutes to go here. Final thoughts, friends. I'm assuming that nothing changes for you And Carlton, I'll say good night to you. I know you got to go. So thank you very much. You go ahead. And
Thank you, guys.
thank you, Carlton.
I think Florida's okay.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
I'm with Carlton.
We can sleep on it better. All right. All right. So,
I agree with Carlton. The Aggies are in deepest and darkest right now.
Hey, there you go. Going a good night. Good night, Carlton. Thank you. All right. So, where was I? I've forgotten.
Final thoughts.
Yeah. Well, I guess I was. What's your thought about how important the SEC champion game or tournament is? Because a lot of people say it's not worth the flip. Now, if you get this double bye, friends, it's a whole different deal. So this could help Florida, I think, a little bit and build up their resume, maybe push them from a 2 to a 1, whatever. So give me your thoughts about the SEC tournament and if it matters and which teams are rising and which teams are falling.
Well, I think you got 4 teams that are in the top 4. I think Auburn, Florida, Alabama, and Tennessee are going to be your top 4 teams. I think the 2 most dangerous teams in the tournament are going to be Missouri and Texas A&M and Kentucky.
Definitely. Yeah, I agree with you.
Those 3 teams are going to be seriously dangerous. You got a couple like Ole Miss, Mississippi State, that they're in the tournament. They're going to be somewhere between a 7 and a 10 seed, and they're really, other than win the tournament, there ain't anything they can do about that. But then you got Georgia, you got Oklahoma, and you got Vanderbilt, and they're going to be really, really dangerous teams. And whoever gets them on that second night of the tournament, and in the semifinal and the quarterfinal night on Friday night, whoever gets those 3 teams, you better tighten up your jock. You better make sure you got some jock itch powder in there, because they're going to be coming at you, because those 3 teams are going to be playing for their lives. And they're going to be trying to stay out of that number 11 or 12 seed. You get there, you're probably going to Dayton and have to play a play-in game. And, you finish the SEC tournament and then you go straight to Dayton.
Yeah,
so that's how the tournament's shaping up, buddy. I think you got 14 teams that have a legitimate shot at the tournament. I'll put Arkansas in there. If Arkansas gets to 18 wins, they're in, because John Calipari, for the same reason that if Duke were to lose the next 150 games, they'd still be a number 1 seed somewhere, because they're Duke.
Okay. And before I give it to Rob, I just want to say I agree with what Jeff says here. What matters at this point is not where you rank, but how you finish the conference championship week, the way you get a good seed in the market. I agree with him. And this time it will matter. Usually speaking, the conference tournament is not as important, but this is the SEC where you have 13 teams could win. So it does matter who you beat. Rob, take us out with your thoughts about, I know you do the show every day. You talk to all the guys in Auburn and Missouri, and what teams do you like right now besides Florida?
I think last year the tournament committee showed they didn't give a damn what you did in the SEC Conference Tournament Championship. I mean, they sent Auburn to hell and Florida to hell too, and they played for the championship. So I don't count on them for anything. What I do think matters is the team you don't want to play right now, along the line of thinking that Franz is using, is Kentucky. Anybody that's playing them right now is a stage prop. The officials are going to bend you over and take you out. That's just what's going to happen if you're playing Kentucky, because they're going to wheel their crippled corpse at 7-7 in the league across the finish line because they're Kentucky. It's like yet unseen 60-year-old photos of Marilyn Monroe in a bikini. They're damn Kentucky, and that's the way it goes. That's the way it always is. So you better be ready to play your ass off in these games, because Franz is right. Franz said on the show many times on our morning show, the Big Ten at one time, I remember they had 14 teams. He said they'll get 17 bids to the NCAA tournament. Well, that's the Franzism, but I do think it matters how you play. And I'll go out right now and say Florida comes back and beats A&M. And I think Buzz Williams pound for pound, the best coach maybe in college basketball. But the coach that is about to do it, he's going to do it next year, maybe this year, taking 4 teams to the Final Four is Rick Pitino. I love the ass chewing he gave his team. It's gone viral all over, about adversity and being tough. Pitino can do it, but Todd Golden in year 3 has Florida. You could say they're way ahead of schedule, but outside of Kentucky, Florida's the bluest blood team in the SEC. So, Florida will come back. I see Florida winning out.
Kentucky, here's the thing, buddy, about it, and I'm going to agree with something about Rob, and here's why. The NCAA is going to do everything in its power to give Kentucky something favorable for one basic reason. It's guaranteed to sell out.
Yeah, that's right.
It is a guarantee. Nobody probably in all.
Well, there's that in the TV ratings that they matter. You're right.
Probably in all of sports.
Yeah.
Did you know that if you go by typical TV ratings, Kansas and Kentucky outdraw 90% of all the SEC football games. Kentucky could play a homeless shelter in a scrimmage, and if they put it on TV, people will watch it.
Well, don't say a homeless shelter. Say Little Sisters of the Poor or something like that.
Well, that's who Kansas would play.
Yeah.
Yes. but in fairness, and I don't have anything against Kentucky at all. I mean, I grew up listening to Kaywood Ledford and Ralph Hacker on WLW AM 700 out of Cincinnati, and a station I used to listen to out of Covington, Kentucky. Tremendous respect for them. I'm being satirical here, which, you have to laugh about it, but they've earned that right. Remember when Pitino was there coming off that awful probation? They went 16-12 and they got a bid to the tournament. Everybody was up in arms, and it's like, look, they're Kentucky.
Yes.
And that's how it is. But you look at Calipari's team, and I'm looking at Mississippi State getting trounced by Alabama right now. There's a lot of basketball to be played. And this is going to be the most fantastic finish to an SEC regular season. But I think the tournament matters the most for the teams that are outside looking in, trying to get into the tournament. They've got to show up. If Auburn or Florida or Alabama or Tennessee loses their first game and they're out, it's like, those deals where the FBI guy comes in and says, you never saw this. This never happened. Forget it ever happened.
Yeah.
That's how it'll be.
Friends,
or like the new Fresh Pet commercial, when the guy asks the dog, he says,
we've been at grandma's.
We've been at grandma's.
Yeah.
France, how far do you go back with Kentucky? What's the earliest you ever saw the team play, Kentucky team play?
I saw Kentucky when they had Pat Riley and Louis Dampier.
Okay.
They moved. Ole Miss moved its game because Ole Miss played in an old barn, basically seated about 2,000 people, and they moved their game with Kentucky and Rupp's Runts to the Mississippi Coliseum in Jackson, which seats 9,000 people, sold out. And a guy named Buddy Nichols, who had once played point guard for Ole Miss, he played with my high school coach, Garney Hatch.
Okay,
Buddy Nichols drove me.
You win. Time out. Okay,
drove me up there, and I got to see Pat Riley. Everybody on Kentucky wears warm-up jackets except Pat Riley, and he comes out there and he looks like the statue of David. He looked like he'd been sculpted, and everybody on Ole Miss took a look at him and goes, "Oh my God!" I mean, unbelievable.
Let me take you back a little further, Franz. Okay, let me give you a couple of names and see if you can put this together. All right, Cliff Hagan.
Sure, Cliff Hagan played for the St. Louis Hawks.
Frank
Beard. Ralph Beard.
I'm talking about the team I saw play was national champion. Seropolis was the big stars. They came to Alligator Alley and played, and I saw them I think that might have been 1960 or so. What year was that?
No, the last time they won under
50s.
Rupp
50s.
was 58.
That's when I was there. I saw him play, and I thought, holy mackerel. And I just remember two things. I remember Cliff Hagan shooting hook shots from the foul line, and his hair was perfect, and it never mussed up the entire game. It was perfect. And like Jimmy Johnson said, I remember Frank Ramsey dribbling the ball across the half-court line and shooting a two-handed set shot and making every one of them. And Swarovski's foot was like 18 inches long. That's what I remember. Anyway, just a little memory. Guys, great job tonight. Thank you. Sorry all the difficulty we had getting in or whatever. Great job, Rob. Thanks for hanging. Who's on the show tomorrow,
fun.
Rob?
We got Coach John Brady will check in with us. He's on the color call right now on the LSU Basketball Network. He'll be on. Our intern, Oakley McFerrin, Dudley Dawson, Hogville.net, Vince Ferrara, the sports animal in Knoxville. Going to bounce it around. A lot of basketball, football, baseball, whatever the trending topics are with executive producer Brendan Martin, the son of Wilton Francis Martin.
There we go.
The birthday boy.
Yeah, he just had his birthday today. Happy birthday, Brendan. And also,
hey, I have to also throw this in. Caglianone goes 2 for 2 with an RBI today, and he hit two absolute bullets, both of them off the bat. They were just singles, but both of them off the bat at 115 miles an hour.
Let's have that bomb he hit yesterday. So, as his first major league home. All right, Francis, do you want to be writing tonight? Tell folks about what they can read.
Well, you can be writing. You could be writing.
You write. What are you writing? I'm not writing, Fran.
I'm writing about basketball. What else?
Okay.
I mean, hey, I'm writing about basketball. I can. It's been this is the fun time of the year.
Yes,
there's nothing.
It's like his holiday season is what it is. Francis' holiday season. So
I love it.
Because here's the thing.
I love it.
You look at basketball, and you look at the last 25 years, and look at the national champions that have come up in the last 25 years. The blue bloods necessarily, Kentucky's only won one national championship. In the last 25 years. The blue bloods don't necessarily win.
That's true.
And that's what makes this fun. Football, it's going to be Alabama, Ohio State. You could just about pick. You got 6 teams you can pick every year, and 4 of them will be in there. Guaranteed.
All right. Great stuff. Good night, friends. Good night, Rob. Appreciate it. See you tomorrow. Appreciate it.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you very much. All right, folks, as we wrap it up, I'm going to tell you about our sponsors here, and that would be I talked to you earlier about Meldon Law and in Titan MRI. Now, here's my good friends. They are a place called Renstar Medical Research, and I'm very proud to have them as a sponsor and to have them as my friend, Joe Sorrentino. He and his partner, Mary Brantley, started this company quite a time ago. They went to high school together and started. Mary's married to the great Scott Bramley, and Joe is the father of Joey Sorrentino, who is a Gator player and now is a fine dentist in Ocala. But what they do is they're trying to help us get a better grip on our health. And what they want you to do is, if you feel up to it, it's painless, it's not a big deal, is log on to renstar.net. They're running these clinical trials all the time. These are doesn't cost you anything. It's not dangerous. You don't have to have any needles or whatever. Simple, easy stuff. And you come in, if you qualify for this, I don't know how long they are, sometimes 6-7 weeks, whatever. And they'll pay you for time and travel if you get picked. And they take this data and they give it to these companies who then can better diagnose what we need in terms of our health. And it's more of a local DNA. So I encourage you, if you feel up to it, to go to renstar.net and look them up and find out what trials they're having right now and sign up and help them. They really want to make us better. They want to make themselves better, and they want to be able to take care of our health. Renstar Medical Research, seeking tomorrow's answers for the health questions of today. All right, folks, thank you very much for the night and for being here for me. And we're back tomorrow night with our Staff, we won't have Allie tomorrow night, but we'll have some surprise guests for you. So appreciate you being here tonight. What a ball game. Once again, Florida down by 26, comes back to take a lead of 1 point. And it lasted only about 30 or 45 seconds. Great comeback. Didn't get what they wanted. Great effort, but you know what? Close only counts in horseshoes, and you can't say anything about anything. Good luck and God bless, but wasn't your night. Have a good night, folks. Thanks.